Silvia and Robbie, thank you so much for joining me for Talent Month.
Thank you, Gary.
Thanks for having us, Gary.
Yeah, let's give this a go. So once again, we are going all over Europe. We're in Great Britain. We're going to travel to Italy. We're going to come to Dublin. It's going to be a great show. So I'm going to start with yourself, Silvia. You have a certain nicety and you like the Celtics a lot, right?
Yeah.
Because whilst your journey might have started in Italy, you somehow wound your way into Dublin working for Schneider. So tell us how you go from Siena to Dublin.
Right. So after finishing up high school in Italy, essentially, a few years later, let's say, I decided to go and study in Scotland, engineering. So I went to Scotland, to Glasgow, and I studied electronics and electrical engineering. And then towards the end of my degree, I applied for Schneider. And then they offered me the opportunity to move to Ireland. So in the end, I decided to move to Ireland and Dublin specifically. And so that's how I
Nice.
Here.
So obviously, for those not overly familiar with geography, Siena is bang or is very close to Tuscany, which is the center of the Renaissance and all this other wonderful stuff. We don't expect to get engineers. We expect to get artists and poets and things. How what caught your imagination to be an engineer?
Right, that's a very good question. Actually, I started studying international relations because in the beginning I wanted to become some sort of a diplomat. But then while I was sort of studying it and then seeing more of the job, I felt like, okay, no, maybe I want to become an engineer because I wanted to be more in contact with, the technical side of things or like understanding how things work in real life. So in the end, I was like, okay, let's do this jump. And that's how I decided to become an engineer. But you're right in saying that in Tuscany, we have more art and, tourism and things like this. But, life.
Yeah, but I guess if my history is right, and it not often is right, Leonardo da Vinci and these dudes, they tended to be quite engineering too. They invented a lot of great stuff. So maybe that you're Leonardo da Vinci reincarnate or something.
I wouldn't say so. Would be nice.
Robbie, have you any story to tell about being somebody reincarnate?
No, unfortunately not. As you can tell, I'm neither from Ireland nor Italy. I'm from the northeast of England, where the weather isn't as shiny as Italy, unfortunately. So.
No, but we often, and we were talking earlier slightly about the importance of sport and football. And honestly, if it wasn't for soccer, I'm not sure a lot of us would know where everywhere it was in Britain because, the flag on the home pitch. And I guess a thing not to say to you is, haven't Sunderland got lovely jerseys this year?
Well, what we're getting at first is calling it soccer. I think that's the most offensive thing I've heard.
Wow. Well, there you go. There you go. I'm so sorry. I must have spent too much time over the United States,
Started off, yeah.
Football.
No, exactly that. No, it is. It's really interesting. Like to see when you see, it just really does give a good light to a lot of different places. A lot of places, like say, even in Europe, when you don't know a lot of places before you actually hear them in football at a young age.
And it's a nice way, and I'm sure you find it in your own business, is that it's a nice way if you're stuck to talk to somebody about something, you bring up the accent, it breaks the ice, unless you're Sunderland and Newcastle and it's after a Tyneside derby or something, then there's a lot of stuff being broken, but I reckon it wouldn't be possibly ice. So listen, anyway, that's a different show, right? So how do you end up on the call? What sort of start, middle and end of education do you have? And are you still in Northeast England?
Yeah, so I started basically a career just after university. I stayed in Newcastle. I stayed close to home. I went to Newcastle University, and then after doing my masters in mechanical and low carbon engineering, I moved to start my journey with Schneider on the grad scheme. It was within the UK, so I was moving around doing BMS, so building management systems. Different fields. Like say I was working around, let's say, Manchester in the northwest, and I went down south. And it was only after the grad scheme, it was right in the middle of the pandemic, and jobs were a bit scarce. Do you know what I mean? Especially the ones that were in the local northeast. So that's where, like I say, working from home jobs came available. So I joined the team in Ireland as a tender engineer for primarily BMS for tendering. So that's how it began. And only recently, in the last few months, I've moved to tender management for EPMS solutions. So your electrical power management solutions. So it's still within tendering, but just more of the electrical side. So it's just quite interesting to see.
There's so much in there that you take for granted that somebody from a generation like me doesn't take for granted, like working from home, technology, Zoom, all the, and I won't go near all those acronyms that you just reeled out there because that sounds like rocket science to me. But it does give you a sense of the fluidity, and location isn't as big a factor. Like you're physically in one location, but you're virtually connected to numerous teams.
Exactly that. It's just in the last few years, it's just been mind blowing to see how many teams. Like you see, you can join a call in the morning, you can be speaking to people from the other side of the world, doing the same projects, just join together, and I think that's great. A little bit more so this year, it's been nice to start visiting Ireland. So it's been nice to actually go over, see the team. I worked with a team for 2 years, and I never met them. So it was really good to actually meet the team after 2 years.
And did you have any moments where you were thinking, but I hope you didn't say, you're taller than I thought, or you're shorter than I thought?
There was a lot of older pictures. Like you tell.
Okay, I hear you. You're balder than I thought, or you were wearing a mask. So we'll bring back in Silvia for a second, and we'll talk about some of the stereotypes about engineering and females and diversity and stuff. Are you seeing more diversity in the field of engineering?
Well, honestly, I think it's still very much male dominated, at least in my specific field. But I have seen lots of progress. So Schneider itself, it's hiring more and more women as engineers on site, which is, I think, the place where the difference is the biggest. So I think there's progress, yes. And definitely, like, I don't feel uncomfortable working with men at all, but maybe in the past, I don't know, there were like different situations, which I'm not sure of. But yeah, no, like I think there's progress nowadays in many ways, and I think there'll be even more in the future. So yeah.
I think, and it's really interesting the point you make. You don't feel uncomfortable working with male team. I'm not sure the females that I ever worked with ever did. It was more the males having issues the other way around. So I mean, I'd like to think that now people don't, that you just your talent and your application and how you do it is how you're perceived or measured. But definitely, and I guess we have to see more coming through. Your course, for instance, in Glasgow, was it?
Yeah.
What would have been the blend of male, female for something like that, for instance?
Well, I do have the numbers. So I'll say we were 40 people in the course, and out of 40, 4 women. So
10%.
10%, yeah.
10%. Okay, so that's still not overly encouraging.
Yeah, well, maybe.
Unless you tell me there was only 2 in the previous course, and then we're in the right way.
Well, it depends, I guess, on the type of engineering. I think computer science was more half-half, biomedical half-half, but maybe mechanical, electrical, electronics is more like less women, more men. But yeah, I'd say, 10% is accurate, even in terms of, work. It's still around 10%, I'd say 10, 20 maybe.
And you said earlier that you wanted to pursue more diplomacy or work in diplomatic corps. So do you find with all these engineering types and with all these project manager types and all these different left side of the brain, Are you the diplomat? Are you trying to keep harmony? Are you trying to basically stop them from eating each other's for lunch? Are you able to bring skills from the previous course and stuff?
Well, yeah, actually, I think in general, women tend to talk more, and this makes everybody in the room, let's say, more comfortable. So yeah, I think it helps to be a woman in a male-dominated environment for this reason. I don't know if I can bring much more from the international relations degree into engineering, but definitely more, an easier approach to people, I would say, like more diplomacy, talking in a relaxed way. Yeah, definitely.
It's really interesting when you have different nationalities as well. And even I'll go back to yourself, Philip, about the UK, because we've a sense that the UK is one big harmonious country, but you've North and South and Scotland and different personalities and characters. You are in a really interesting position to look at all the different nationalities that work on projects virtually and physically. And is it getting easier?
Oh, I was going to say it is, in my opinion, it's just making it virtual. I think you start taking down the barriers itself. There's less where you from and more part of the same team as where you found. If you speak to someone on a personal level, that might be a bit different of a story. There's very much a pride of where you're from, especially with the North and Scotland, and compare it down to London. If you couldn't call anyone outside of London a Londoner.
But
in terms of business, I think that starts. It's almost forgotten about because it's all one team. You start working together. It doesn't matter whether or not I'm working from someone with Irish or if again they're also from the UK.
Yes.
It's just bringing together people from different backgrounds, different aspects. They've all got different experiences and strengths. And
I don't know the answer to this, so I'll ask you. Maybe you do, but are you finding that mixed teams of all different types of characters, not just all engineers, or not just all project managers, or not all sales and not all engineers, is a much better place to be because everybody gets a bit more empathy of why you're doing what you're doing? Is that something that's been encouraged within big companies like your own? That people mix and get to understand a bit more about the whole food chain, I guess.
Exactly, 100%. I feel like the more fluid the role is, you start working better with other teams. You don't have set divisions where one person's working on this and the other person's working on that. You understand more as what everyone else is doing, which I think is really beneficial as a business and how to help the customer, because you want to be able to speak all languages, don't you? You want to be able to you want to be able to have that conversation no matter what the customer wants.
It's really interesting. The more I do these sessions and the more I listen, that the companies are encouraging people, if they're working, let's say, in the pharmaceutical sector or the data sector or the hospital sector or the hospitality sector, learn about the challenges of what you're trying to solve the problems by talking to the end user, the guy who has the problem, because you could have the very best kit and 99% of it is useless. So don't waste the 99% time trying to force them to embrace something and love something and buy something ultimately that has no value for them. Is that something you're seeing?
100%, because a lot of times you do have to feed the information out to the customer. You've got to encourage it, but sometimes they don't know what they want, and sometimes you don't know what they want. So you've got to work both ways, where you're having that conversation. You're trying to work out exactly what's the best solution for both teams. Going back exactly what you were saying, working with data centers, pharmaceuticals, I think that's exactly what my job is. It's split between different industries. My work is split very, very vastly across all aspects.
There's sectors that have similarities, and then there's others that are very ingrained, and you have to be a specialist in an area. But one question that is always interesting to ask is, so you're 18 and you've got 5 minutes with yourself. So you're able to go back and you're 18. sorry, you're talking to your 18 or 17-year-old, was it GCSEs or whatever is in the UK? What do you tell yourself? What would you like to tell yourself then that you know now?
Jump probably is the best way to say it. Just
Jump.
always go for it. Yeah, go for it. Is the best way. Don't stress about the littler things. Whether or not, like you say, it's going to university or whether it's going into the job. There's always that aspect of is it the right thing to do? Is it the wrong thing? And like you say, I used to spend a lot of time worrying more than I would be just actually getting on and dealing with the problem.
And would you, when you say worry, procrastinate, you know, your gut would be telling you maybe do it, but somebody else would be telling you, well,
yeah, and there's something in the back of your mind saying, is that the right thing? Is that where you want to end up? Do you know what I mean? Whether or not it's, like I say, I just decided between, like I say, apprenticeships at one point and do you know what I mean, and degrees, and there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. So
no.
As long as you go for it and you put your all into it, I think that's the best advice I'd give myself.
That's fantastic. I love that. You're going to become a one of these guidance counselors in some school somewhere. Silvia, I'm going to ask you exactly the same question. You're 18. You're in Tuscany. The sun is on your back. You're having a glass of Chianti. What? I'm not even sure you're drinking at that age. But what are you telling yourself at 18?
Well, I would say something similar to Robbie. Like, I would just say stop thinking too much and just go for it, try. Because, you know, like when you're like a student or you don't know much about the industry and things like these, you just try to find the pros and cons of everything. But in the end, really, you don't really know anything. So until you try, you wouldn't understand for real. So I would say just go with it. And if it's the wrong choice, as Robbie was saying, you'll figure it out and just go for a new one. Yeah, so I would say that.
You had a lot of change, if I might say, early in your life. You basically mindfully decided to leave the country of Italy to get further your education. That probably in the long term will stand to you because you're well used to change.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah. And everybody was sort of saying, oh, you shouldn't go, you should stay here and so on. So yeah, I'm used to changing country, changing cultures. I've been to Japan as well in the past. So yeah, that really helps when you have to adapt in a new job, a new place. So yeah, I'd say so.
So when you go home and you're talking to your grandmother, or your mother, or your aunties and uncles, and they probably look at you going, "Oh my God, where are you today?" Did they understand more what drives you than they did before?
I'd say maybe, but you know, with my grandparents, I always say the same thing like 10 times, and they always say the same thing back. It's hard to change your mind. But yeah, now they're more used to like finding new things. For example, when I say how, you know, things are different in Ireland, they initially don't believe it, but then like they get used to it and they believe it. But yeah, like, yeah, it does help a little bit. So I would say, yeah, you're right.
It's also experience, you know, when you try everything from theory or it's written on Google. You've got to, you know, it's hard to tell somebody how bad Marmite tastes until you taste Marmite, right?
Yeah, like they go and tell me to go and buy something in a supermarket that is not in Ireland, and I'm like, it's really not in Ireland. They don't believe it. That's hard.
I know. So it's been short and sharp. It's been wonderful, though. You both have great stories, different stories, diverse stories, education, geographic stuff. It's extraordinary to think, and I know that you don't think it at the moment, that you're so young and having so much experience already. And knowing its experience, you know, from the generation that I come from, we were happy to work. We didn't really know. We didn't keep our head up. You know, we hadn't got all the stuff to read. And I really do wish you the very best with both your careers, because you're only building your base at the moment. And it's been really great. I've enjoyed it immensely. And you're taking risks, which I like. You're taking qualified risks, which I think is brilliant. And I think you guys have a different view on failure. We didn't want to fail because it was a big black mark. Whereas I think there's a sense that I'm getting from you guys, nothing can be perfect, but you'll use it to learn rather than to fail. That's what it's classified as. And that's brilliant. It's really great. So well done. Thanks for your time. Thanks for putting your hand up. And have a great rest of the month of September.
Thanks very much.